Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Full and Complete Reading is a Universal Mandate, sponsored with Fulcrum and the NAACP of Oakland. We are emphasizing authors and literary works, try to elevate reading, writing, and literature. We're joined today by a new author, Cleve Bush III, who has written a novel that will be released in September. Name of the book, Identical Strangers. Cleve Bush has been kind enough to join us today. Mr. Bush, we thank you for your time today and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I always like to ask new authors, why? You know, Identical Strangers is your first novel, which means that you're at the beginning point of your journey as an author. And so I'm just curious, why did you decide to write the book?
We touched on this in part one of the interview. A good friend and mentor, kind of got me to the point to where I enjoyed writing. I enjoyed creating stories from my past experiences. Identical Strangers is actually the second novel that I wrote, but it's like my pet novel. I put more time. I learned a lot as I wrote my first one, but I actually sat down and I was able to build my characters. I was able to build the content of the novel around the characters. And at the particular time, with Identical Strangers, I wanted to pay homage to African American females, that's surpassing mountaintops and boundaries in every aspect of life. One of the characters she actually superseded expectations in the military world. And, she became a part of the Navy SEALs, and that's almost impossible and unheard of in the military. Mm-hmm. And as I built her character, I just wanted to really just pull out a strength that so many African American females has naturally. Mm-hmm. They go from being single parents all the way to the boardrooms, becoming executives. And I just really and truly wanted to pay homage to the female gender, to the African American female gender with this book.
Do you see this as a book that is specific for people with a military background, or will people who have never been in the military be able to understand it and appreciate it? I was fortunate enough to be able to read a manuscript. Thank you for sending that ahead of time. I really enjoyed the book. But I'm curious, your impression when you were writing it, were you intending it to be for folks with a military background, or could it be for anyone to enjoy?
This book here is for anyone to enjoy. It just, the military spiel of the book actually came from a lot of my experiences dealing with military policy, but I put the feminine perspective on it and just try to take myself out of the male role to create an enjoyable novel.
So do you have a military background? Were you ever in the service?
Yes, I was in the United States Navy.
Where were you stationed at, if you don't mind me asking?
I started my career in the Navy in Orlando, Florida. I went to boot camp and I went to A school in Orlando. I left Orlando, Florida, and I went to Groton, Connecticut to sub school. Once I left Groton, Connecticut, and went to shore duty, I was fortunate enough to go to San Diego, California. And that was my last place of duty.
So for those of us who have not served in the military, you said anybody can understand it. Anybody can enjoy the book. You think that by reading this, they'd get a little sense of some of the positives and negatives of that world?
Definitely. I believe that on a more positive note, that the camaraderie, the codependence of in my case, the sailors. And just how everybody ties into everybody else. You might be on a ship the size of a small city, and may not have met 3/4 of the people on the ship with you, but yet and still y'all job titles demand that y'all depend on each other every day.
Mm.
Just the camaraderie ship and that aspect. And there was some negative points. Hindsight is 20/20.
Mm-hmm.
And, had I knew then what I know now, then, maybe my experience would have been a little bit different.
Yeah. So you mentioned that being kind of the equivalent of a Navy SEAL, there is this belief that women have to be either all hardened or they're all soft. Either they're all feminine or they're all masculine and tough. There's this split as people wrestle with their identity, as people struggle with how the world sees them. But to have characters in the military, I'm assuming that the hard part is in there, but I'm also curious about their femininity, their womanhood. Is there a feminine component to this? Not that you can't be a woman in the military. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is they must have some sort of an edge to have that level of training going on to be in the SEALs. But does it also show a softer side, a more feminine side?
Right. Well, actually, the characters on the cover are not military personnel. They're actually military dependents.
What do you mean by that?
They are the offspring of Miss Destiny Dupree, who was the actual Navy SEAL. And as the plot unfolds, Destiny ends up becoming pregnant, and she's pregnant with twins. And the main characters are the twins. Although the book opens up, as the book opens up, it gives a glimpse into the life of Destiny Dupree.
Who is your reader? Who do you think is the person that goes into the bookstore or shopping online, or let's say they're in a bookstore and there are 5 books on the table? Who's picking up that book? Who do you think would be interested in this novel?
I think my reader is majority female from the age of 18 to 35, professional, aspiring, and whatever their niche in life is. And I think that's going to be the biggest majority of my readership. I think I will actually pick up the males in the same age range who've been in the military, and I'm hoping that my readership is broader than I can see at the moment. But I'm looking for the book to be a big hit among college students, college to young adults, people just finding their way to just becoming established in life, because the book is more so about perseverance than anything. My main characters in the book, because of the way that they came about, I think that it's going to show a overwhelming will to be better people in society. And then when you get to talking about the title, Identical Strangers, it's about twins. It's about identical twins that were separated at an early age and had truly became strangers. With the hopes of reuniting at some point.
There's always said to be a special bond between twins. Something about that relationship causes people to be extremely close, and people even would say can feel what the other's feeling at times, or think what the other. You hear about this all the time.
Right.
I don't know if you're a child of, well, I do know, but I'm going to ask you if you have a twin or not, whether you're close to your siblings or not. But I would love you to talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, this idea of the connection that twins have and why that's an important part of the story.
Well, no, I'm not a twin. I do have, two siblings, one older and one younger, and we're all fairly close. And as far as twins go, just my fascination with twins, and I'm gonna tell you, if I had children, I always wanted twins, and I wanted twin girls. So in a lot of my work, the twin nature, that desire will show itself. But my wife, she has twins, and I watched them grow up, and I've just, just different sets of twins that I've met and encountered in life, and I just sit back and watch the resemblances and the differences, and this is real interesting because here you might have two people that look identical, and once you get over the strong resemblance to one another, you get to see the splitting and the varying of personalities, and it's just the psychology of twinship is to me, it's amazing. It's captivating just to see how they interact with each other, to see how they mood swings correlate, just to see how their ideas are so much the same, but yet still have distinct differences at the same time.
One of the things I noticed when I picked up the manuscript was the cover art in the very beginning.
Right.
That cover art was distinct, and it really got my attention. I'm curious what you can or would share with the viewers about what that's supposed to symbolize, if you would. I know I don't want you to give up everything, but what would you like people to, because when you see that, it is a startling image, and they're holding weapons. So what could you help us make a little bit of sense of that?
Okay, the twins, they were separated and trained to become assassins. And like I was telling you, the sit back and watch distinct personalities of twinship is something in itself. But the snake is actually an inherited pastime of one of the twins, and she adopted her infatuation with reptiles from her mom. Although, and it's funny, although she had never met her mom in person, they both innately took a character of their mother. And the snake is actually one of the infatuations that one of the twins adopted.
Mm-hmm.
Now the dog tags represent the passing of their mother, and it also represents the reuniting of the twins after so long of being separated.
You just mentioned that they took on characteristics of their mother, whether they knew it about it or not. Your name is actually Cleve Bush III. Right. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit. I'm assuming that that's something that might apply to you as well. Are there any characteristics that you take from Cleve Bush the second? Would you mind if there's any light you could? I'm just curious as you talk about how your characters inherited certain traits from their parents. I'm wondering if you see something specifically from your father whose name you bear. If there's anything that you found yourself taking on characteristics.
I've taken on characteristics. The biggest characteristic that I took from my father was his personality. He was a humorous man, and I kind of picked up my humor side from him. He saw life in a different light through his travels, and and I find myself as I get older, just adopting some of his takes on life. He was an extremely humble person. I would like to think that I am. He just saw, he understood the simplicities of life. I recall while I was away, just to speak a little bit about him, you know, and I'm gonna show you what I mean by the simplicities of. We were sitting in the visitation room, and you know, and after I walked in and got situated and sat down, and I asked him what's going on, you know, how things going. You know, his thing was, I'm living a square life and I'm loving it. Now, anybody who, you know, met my father or knew anything about my father, my father was, you know, he was a golfer. He was a caddy. He caddied in the Masters a time or two. But my father was a hustler, and you know, seeing the situation, and it's so funny because we think that we're supposed to watch our parents and mimic, you know, how they live in life. But he watched what happened to me, and when I got in trouble, his whole life changed. You know, he got a job and retired. He just kind of let the whole infatuation with the streets go. And, you know, every time we'd sit down and visit and I ask him little simple questions, you know, he'll hit me with some answers that he knew I wouldn't understand for the moment, but he knew I'll go back and I'll reflect. And, you know, that was the biggest one that I take. You know, I sit down, yo, what's going on, Pops? How you doing? Man, I'm living the square life and I'm loving it. So, you know, me just seeing, you know, my father situate his life because of what I was going through, you know, really meant something. And, you know, I take that simplicities of life characteristic that he portrayed, and I just apply it to my everyday life. You know, just appreciate the simple things, because you never know, you know, when they're going to be taken away.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. It's interesting what we learn from our parents, even if it's not at the moment, but when we reflect on it later and think about it, what lessons we can draw from that. So I'm curious, you have the book, and when it does come out, where can people pick it up?
You can go to my author's page, authorclevebush.com.
So the next question is, so you've written this book. Is that it? What's next for Cleve Bush? Are you planning on writing another book, or is this it? I'm curious to know what the next step is for you as an author.
The next step for me as an author, in all actuality, I have two other books already written.
Oh.
So once I get this one going, and you know, then I plan on, you know, coming with another book. And all of my books, it's a different style of writing in each book that I've written. You will never get the same content.
So when you say you have another book coming, does that mean that you no longer will follow the journey of the characters in this book? Are you starting a different book, or is it a continuation of what you have with this book? Is it a series, or is it something completely different?
No, it's not a series. It's something completely different.
Oh, okay.
And my idea for this book is I would like to see this particular book and the characters of that book somewhere between a stage play and a movie screen. And I think that as African American writers, that we are all seen as writing the same content. I've read numerous of African American authors as far as novels go, and you know, it's like we're placed in a box to where we only have like a minute experience, as far either it has to be drugs, it has to be, you know, something of that nature, you know. But this is when you think of African American literature, you know, especially in the novel form, you know, that's the first thing somebody thinks of, you know, well, I've already read this story before. I just want my audience to know that there's so much that we deal with as African Americans, and a lot of the subjects is taboo. This particular book, Identical Strangers, you know, touch bases on things like the child welfare services, military propaganda. It touches on things that normal African Americans don't sit around and conversate about.
Right.
But yet and still, if you look at, you know, the homeless population, if you look at the homeless population, there's a big percentage of the homeless population that are veterans. And we never touch bases on, you know, at certain times or periods in life, you know, if you went through the military, how hard it was for you to make rank. Or if you was a female in the military, how hard it was for you to break through through different job titles and, you know, climbing up the professional ladder as far as being military goes. You know, it's like certain things that we encounter as African Americans, you know, it happened and we just leave it there. You know, we never put it out there on the forefront. We never talk about it. And that's my agenda with all of my books, to bring real life situations that we face, you know, as a culture, as a people, not just as inner city youth or inner city residents, but, you know, as people in professional realms, as people in sports arenas, you know, things that we never find time or even think is worthy of talking about.
You know, you bring up something important, which is the things that are going around in society, the things that we wrestle with on a day-to-day basis. I love to kind of close out and ask you a question. Some folks who would say this is not the time to worry about reading and giving people a book in their hand to read. So I'm curious to know about the timing of your book. You know, why choose this moment to release your first book?
I think the timing right now is perfect. With so much going on, you know, for one, a good entertaining novel will kind of, you know, divert a person's attention. It'll take from the depressing mood of the day. But for two, with everything that's going on, COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, you know, all the racial tensions and civil unrest, you know, that we're going through, I think it's imperative from the literary aspect or the literacy aspect of reading, because, you know, you have things going on. You have people who are missing the book for the simple fact that they don't know how to fill out a stimulus application. They don't know how to fill out an EIDL application to, you know, money and things that's allocated to help Black businesses, to help, you know, and these are things that you know, I've never really seen or been introduced to outside of, you know, college grants and things of that nature. I mean, it's so much going on. And if you're not open, you know, to becoming literate, then, you know, you don't know how to do these things. And I think, you know, just learning how to read and learning to read for understanding it is opening us up to be able to go out there, you know, and get the things that's out there for us during this pandemic. But I also believe, Kareem, I believe that this book gives us hope. It gives us moral stability, because there's so much going on in this book that can take and take a person's moral compass and just have it in all in disarray. You know what I mean? It's pointing, that compass pointing in every direction. And I think, you know, with my two characters, without giving too much of the book, you know, these sisters, what they experienced really hardened their hearts. It actually stole morality from them because of what they've been through. And one twin, you know, she still had a promising glimpse of morality, you know, about her. But the other twin, she had none. She had no empathy. She had no sympathy. She had, you know, she had a black heart, is what they call it. But the thing about it is, that particular twin knew that her sister, once they reunited, would never be able to reach her full potential because they were so codependent as long as she was in the picture. Now, what happened, you'll have to read to find out. But, you know, and I think that in and of itself, you know, gives us the hope that, you know, even though things may be bad, it's always room for them to get better. It's, you know, as long as we have something that we hold on to, as long as we have principles, moral spirituality that we hold on to, then it's light at the end of the tunnel.
You know, I did notice, in addition to themes like perseverance, I also noticed it wrestled with how do you deal with anger? How do you deal with resentment? I also, while reading it, noticed the element of spirituality that I saw certain nuggets that you dropped in there that kind of took me back, with references that if you have a spiritual background and or religious background, whether you be Christian or Muslim or Jewish, what have you, you would recognize certain things.
Right.
I'm assuming that was very curious to me. They just seem to be sprinkled in the book here and there. Certain phrases you use, certain things you'd say. Was that intentional? And if so, why did you do that?
It was intentional, and also this book is dedicated, and one of the characters is built around the dedication. And like I said in our previous interview, you know, the guy that introduced me into reading, he passed away. He was a brilliant mind. You know, he wrote articles for the Charleston Chronicle. He done a lot. And
what was his name, if you don't mind saying it again?
His name was Malik A. Rafsanjani. And he was a Muslim brother. And you know, this book is a dedication to him and everything that he brought to my life. So as you see things pertaining to spirituality, to Islam, you know, even all the way down to the naming of the children, it was carefully plotted. Because even with the children's name, you know, the mother was trying to bring about faith and prosperity, you know, through, you know, because, you know, back in the days of our grandparents and our great grandparents, a name meant everything. You know, you can be in a community and, oh, that's Mr. Weaver's grandson. That name held weight. And, you know, fast forward into these times, we've kind of, you know, gotten away from, you know, everything that really means and identifies us as a culture and as a people. And it doesn't mean the same as it used to. So I think that was, you know, real important, and it was just, like I said, it was just the way that I, you know, just built the book up and created it chapter by chapter, character by character. I wanted us to bring that old humble feeling back to reading. And if you notice, you know, it's poetry. And in every work that I'll ever create, there will be poetry in it, for the simple fact that poetry is so imperative in the literary world, because, you know, when you sit and you read a poem that captures your interest, it opens your mind up for everything. You know, it lets you sit back and analyze life more than one dimension. You know, because you have to analyze that poem from the person who wrote it. You have to analyze that poem from the understanding of the person who's reading it. You have to analyze that poem from the day and time in which it was created. So it's so many. It's more than it's a multi-dimensional way of self-expression. And I think we're, you know, kind of just getting away from poetry as a whole, and I just want to bring that back, because, like I said, not only is it a good release valve, you know, poetry is also therapeutic. It's you know, just something about the written word that provides therapy. You know what I mean? It's food for the soul. So, you know, I just kind of want to keep that vibe going.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time. Our hour is up, but your book is coming out in September, and it's www.authorclevebush.com. The title of the book is Identical Strangers, and it can be found at that website and pre-ordered in advance. And so, look, when we just appreciate you. We thank you for taking the time to write the book, and then also spending some time with folks to just share what you know about it, your thought process behind it. Last time we talked a little bit about your journey. I hope you don't mind coming back again as your journey continues, whether it's through speaking engagements or future books, et cetera. I hope you'll be willing to make time and sit down with us in the future as well.
Most definitely.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate you and we thank you. And we encourage everybody to go out and get the book. Let us know what you think about it. Give the author some feedback. We appreciate you. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And we wish you nothing but the best. Go get that book, Identical Strangers, coming out late September 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.